All right, CNT125 Subnet Application Lab. We just got done configuring both routers. So before we go any further, I say in this lab, take a minute, look at your routers and switches. Next to all the ports that you're plugged into, you should see blinky link lights. Some of the ports, the link lights will be next to it vertically. Some of the ports, they'll be underneath it or above it. So you'll just need to look near that port. You're looking for blinky link lights. Most of ours are green, indicating that they're successfully working. Look for them. Look for that next to all your ports. So check your cables. Look for link lights. If they're all blinking green, that's a good sign. If they're not, I tell you here to do these checks. Make sure the cables are correct. Make sure they're in the right ports. Don't assume. Triple, quadruple check. Okay? Go back to your map. Make sure, this cable here is going from this port to this port. Make sure this cable here is going from this port to this port, and so forth. Double, triple, quadruple check. Okay? As I always like to say, be 1,000,000% sure when you say, yeah, the cables are correct. After that, on your routers, do show run. Okay, so I'm on the Cisco 4221, do a show run. And next to your ports, I should not see the word shut down. I should not see the word shut down underneath this port. If I do, I'm going to go into that port and issue a no shutdown. So if I were to see it under this one, I would go in here and go interface, gigabit Ethernet 0/0/0, and I would literally issue the no shutdown command to bring that online. Okay, so if you see that under any port, go in there and do a no shutdown and turn that thing on. Okay, then again, you should start seeing blinky green lights. Next thing on the routers, go next to look at each port again and verify this port, is this the correct IP and subnet mask. Look at every digit. Look at every digit. Okay, it's real easy to have a 1 missing here and you see 28 and think it's 128. Okay, so look at every digit and fix it. Make sure it's right. If you need to fix it, scroll back up here. Here's how to fix the IPs next to router ports. On your show run, also make sure that the routing protocol, make sure these networks are showing up as well. Make sure all three are correct. Look at every digit. If you need to fix them, scroll up here. Here's directions on how to take a bad one out and put a correct one in. Okay? Do all those things, and then double check your blinky link lights. And then I should see blinky link lights on everything. Excellent. Now take your workstations, plug them in. Make sure, in my case, I'm using the left PC plugged into the top switch, the right PC plugged into the bottom switch. However you want to organize it, just keep track of what you're doing. I've cabled them into my switches. I've already plugged the IP address in on this one. I'm going to do the IP address on this one now. So I'll go to my network settings on this PC, open network and sharing. I'm going to give you a massive tip right now this semester. A lot of times people like turning the Wi-Fi on, like this one is here. That can be helpful sometimes, but it actually can cause issues in your lab, in the lab you're doing right now, connectivity. So shut that off. Then go back to your network settings, network and sharing. I'll go to Ethernet 3, and now I will make my setting changes. That'll save you a lot of headaches, that little tip I just showed you. So I will plug in my IP, 172.16.0.10 for this side of the network. 0.10 is what I'm using. I'm using the 255.255.192.0, and I'm using 172.16.0.1 as my gateway. 172.16.0.1, this router port here, that router port right there. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to say close. I'm also going to say close, okay? Another tip, a lot of people like to leave this open. They like to leave this open to view it. While it's open, it's not being applied. While this is sitting here open, it's not being applied. So leaving this open to check it can actually cause conflict issues or things not being applied correctly. So don't leave that open. Say OK, say close, close all that out. I usually close these out just for ease of viewing. Open your command prompt and do your IP config. That now asks the computer, what are you using? And now it shows me this is what I'm using. That is the best way to check that and avoid those conflict issues. Okay, so now that I have that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to ping the gateway address that's here. That's the main thing I want to do. I want to ping that gateway address. I want to ping the router. I want to ping the router here and make sure I can get it. So I'm going to ping the gateway address 172. Actually, let me make this a little larger. Let's do some properties on this guy. Let's do our font, and let's make the font a little bit larger. There we go. Look at that. Okay. So ping 172.16.0.1 is the gateway address, and I should get that. I should get that. And I'm going to do the same thing over on this PC over here, which I did right before I started this podcast. They are both pinging the gateway. That needs to work. If it does not, backtrack, check your cables, check your IP subnet mask gateway, look for typos, close your Windows network settings, verify it to command prompt IP config, and try it again. Okay? Usually it's people have cable on the wrong switch. People usually have switches cabled to the wrong routers. So double check all of those things and then retry that IP config and ping. Okay? That's why I tell you there, like, okay, check it, find it, see if you can fix it. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to try to ping between my PCs now. So I'm actually going to try to ping the other PC I have in the network, 172.16.128.10. And if I've done everything right, I should get a successful reply. And I have. Yay! Okay? So again, I tell you here, check that. If need be, troubleshoot. So now I'm telling you, refer back, check your IP settings on your PC, and then go back and start checking settings on the router interfaces, etc. Use all these troubleshooting tips here to track it down. See if you can find it. See if you can find it. That is huge skills and huge abilities for people in IT. See if you can track it down and find it. If you're not able to find it or it's just not working, let me know, okay? We want to make sure those are working. Once that is working, then we continue on. Now we're going to look at our router and look at our routing table. This is a little preview of stuff we're going to look at in Chapter 9. So it really doesn't matter which router I'm on. I'm on the 4221, so I'm going to do show IP route. And what I should see, let me make this a little wider. Let me do that again so we get a little bit cleaner. There we go. Here's the key. Over here on the left is letters that the key helps me with. What I'm seeing is it says, hey, 172.16 is subnetted. It recognizes we have it subnetted. It's like, hey, you have this subnetted. And it has here, it learned the 64 subnet, it learned the 128 subnet, and it also knows about the 0. So in this case, it's like, hey, I know the 0 network is out there, I know the 64 network is out there, and I know the 128 network is out there. If you look a little closer, it says, hey, on this router, directly connected is the 64 network, and here's the IP address of that port. And it knows the 28 network is out there, and the 128.1 is the port address. It even knows what port and everything. It's directly connected on that port. And then it also learned, hey, this 172.16.0.0 network, I can get there via this port by going to this IP, and it's essentially 2 away. That's what's called a composite metric. It knows router and bandwidth. It factors those together to say, hey, it's essentially 2 away, which is better than 10 away or 12 away. Okay, just to give you a heads up. And the 110 is the administrative distance for OSPF. Again, we'll learn that in Chapter 9. Those are things we'll be learning in Chapter 9. So it learned all the networks that are out there, and it's going to keep track of them so that we can move traffic through the network. Now, I'm making sure my other PC is not asleep over there. The other thing I want you to do is, once that's working, do a trace across the network too, which I didn't do earlier, so let me do that now. Trace RT, 172.16. 128.10. I want to make sure I can trace to that PC over there. And it should be showing me my routers and then eventually that PC. I jumped over that earlier. That was up here about tracing through. So there's the first router. This should be the other router. This should be the 4221 router. And then the actual 128.10 PC that we traced to. And that shows me my path I got there. I kind of got ahead of myself. So here, when I'm looking at routing table show IP route, I'm looking to make sure all 3 networks are there. We have 3 subnets, so I should be seeing all 3 networks. That's what I should be seeing there. What I want you to do before you leave that is save that. The only way you're going to get this table is if your network's up and fully running. That's the only way you'll get this table. So I'm going to copy all that. I'm going to right-click. Oop, crud. Right-click. I forget. And Putty is going to paste. So I don't want that. Let me try that again. We'll do show IP route. Let me get a clean one there. Show IP route. There we go. Yeah, what I just did, you're going to end up doing at some point. It accidentally happens. I'm going to copy all that, and I'll either use Control-C or Enter. And then I'm going to open a notepad file. I'll open up a new one here. Actually, I'll close that, clear that out. I'm going to paste that in. There's my routing table. And I will do a Save As. I have a 125 folder, so I'm going to do a Save As there. And I'm going to call it, 125 Subnet routing table. Something of that effect. That way I know this is my subnet routing table. I'll save that so I have that. That shows that you have this network up and fully running. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to gather our router configs and our switch configs. So to do that, I'll show you on each one real quickly. On my router, I will do a show run. I'll hit the space bar a couple times so it all displays. I will carefully scroll up here, highlight this, drop it down until I get to the end. Again, Control-C. I'll open up a new notepad, file new, and I will paste this in, and I will save as. Again, I'll give it something like 125, and this will be the 4221 subnet config. 4221, I'll put router in there, subnet config. I think that's roughly the name I have you use over here. Yeah, 4221 router subnet config. That's essentially what we're doing. And I'll save that. I will console into the other router and do the exact same thing. So don't forget to do that one. I will then, actually I'll do that real quick. So that way I have all my configs as well. I'm going to move to the other router. Here's a 2011, enable, show run. I will highlight this and save this one. Put in its own notepad file. Control-C. File new. Paste this in. File save as. And I'll call this one 2011. 2011 router subnet config. That one's good. And then I will console into both of my switches and save them as well. So I will do top switch up here. And the main thing here, we're looking for the IP that we set, the IP and the name. Control-C, file new, paste this one in, save this one. $29.60, I think this was the top. Switch subnet config. And then I'll move my console down to the bottom one and do that one. Control-C, file new. If you wanted to combine all these into one file, that's fine. Just make sure you label so you know you have it all. And I'm going to do 2960 bottom. There we go. So now I have all the configs. Last podcast, I'll go through questions and cleanup.